The sound of claws scraping against rusted metal echoes through the freezing concrete of the basement. There are no animals down here, only a darkness that seems to have teeth and an ancient hunger. The phone's flashlight flickers and dies just as the green gate creaks open an inch in the dark. The terror in Chicago isn't an urban legend. It is breathing right beneath the residents' feet. The viral video begins with a stifled scream and the sound of something heavy being dragged in the back. The tenant focuses her camera on a damp, viscous footprint that shouldn't exist there. The mark has abnormal contours and looks like it was left by something crawling in the shadows. The dread is immediate, raw, and hits the viewer like a punch to the gut in the middle of the night. This building in the heart of Chicago hides a secret that the city government tried to erase. The basement walls are made of a black brick that absorbs all light and heat. Down there, the air is so thick you feel as if you are breathing in dead ashes. Every shadow cast on the iron beams seems to come to life the moment you look away. In January 2026, images of this subcellar stopped the internet with a visual shock. A woman, simply trying to do her laundry, stumbled upon a horror movie set. What was supposed to be a domestic chore became a desperate record of survival. The basement isn't just dark. It is charged with an oppressive and purely malevolent energy. The descent down the rotten wooden stairs is a brutal test for anyone's nerves. Every step emits a high-pitched groan that sounds like a final warning not to proceed. The humidity on the walls forms patterns that resemble faces distorted in eternal agony. The smell of decay and old metal fills the lungs of anyone brave enough to go down. The main hallway is long and ends in a void of absolute and suffocating darkness. Fluorescent lights flicker, creating lapses of total blindness every few seconds, those intervals of shadow. It feels as if something is silently approaching you. The resident reports feeling invisible hands brushing against her shoulders throughout the journey. The wooden partitions surrounding the laundry area are covered in a black slime. Inside each niche there are traces of lives that were interrupted in a brutal fashion. Broken toys, old suitcases, and photos stained with something dark decorate the chaos. No one knows how these objects got there or why no one ever removed them. The breaking point happened when the camera focused on the mysterious and heavy green gate. It stands out from the rest of the basement, with layers of paint that seem to hide something abominable. The chains holding it are thick, but they are being corroded by something acidic and alive. There is a feverish heat emanating from that entrance, as if there were a meat furnace behind it. The resident refuses to open the gate because she hears a growl coming from the bottom of the abyss. It isn't the growl of a common animal, but a vocal vibration that makes the chest tremble. It is a sound that harks back to something ancestral, trapped and extremely furious with human light. The video captures the exact moment the chain vibrates under violent internal pressure. Documentary investigation reveals the land was the site of executions in the last century. Before the building was erected, a clandestine prison operated in that same quadrant. The cells were underground and frequently flooded, causing deaths by sheer despair. The current basement was built exactly over the pits where the bodies were forgotten. Audio recordings show that the humming in the place reaches frequencies that cause physical pain. People watching the video report nausea, dizziness, and sudden anxiety attacks. Scientists suggest infrasound, but the claw marks on the concrete say otherwise. The reality down there tears apart any logical explanation that science tries to offer. The resident noticed her clothes came back with stains resembling ritual symbols. They were drawings made with an oily, foul-smelling substance that no washing can remove. She stopped using the place, but the basement began calling her through lucid nightmares. Dreams of the green gate open became a constant in her nights of pure dread. An elderly neighbor, who has lived in the building for decades, gave a grim testimony. He claims that in the 80s, workers vanished during a simple renovation. Management hushed up the case, saying they simply abandoned the job on site. But the neighbor swears he hears the cries for help coming from behind that emerald gate. The phone light reveals that the basement ceiling is covered in thousands of dead insects. They don't fall to the floor. They remain stuck as if they were sucked into the stone. Death seems to be the only permanent state in that environment devoid of sunlight. The silence is interrupted only by the dripping of a black fluid coming from the pipes. The camera catches a sudden movement in one of the deepest corners of the damp hallway. A tall silhouette, with elongated and disproportionate limbs, fades into the dense shadow. There was no time to focus, but the shape was undeniably inhuman and totally hostile. The resident lets out a sob of terror and begins to run back toward the high staircase. Her panic is palpable through the shaky lens that swings as she tries to flee. Behind her, the sound of heavy footsteps hitting the concrete with massive force is heard. It seems the basement does not want her to take the images to the bright outside world. She manages to reach the top of the stairs, but the upper door seems to be locked from the outside. The despair of being cornered between the locked door and the monster in the dark is terrifying. She pulls the handle with force while the flashlight illuminates the bottom of the step. A pale, nail-less hand appears on the first step, groping the air in her direction. At the last second, the door gives way and she throws herself out toward the common hallway. After this event, the resident decided to investigate the history of the family that founded the building. She discovered the original owner was obsessed with occultism and forbidden architecture. He believed that buildings could serve as anchors for entities from other dimensions. The basement was designed to be the stomach of this organic structure, hungry for lives. Old newspaper archives mention rituals performed in the basement during the full moon. Neighbors at the time complained of guttural chants that made the window panes vibrate. The police never intervened, as the owner had influential connections in the high ranks. The mystery was buried along with the victims under layers of concrete and lies. The resident returned to the basement accompanied, but the environment seemed to have changed again. The green gate was covered by a cold mist that prevented any clear vision. Her companion felt a sudden burning in his arm and found 3 deep cuts. Nothing had physically touched him, but the aggression was real, visible, and bloody. Internet theories range from dimensional portals to vengeful Chicago ghosts. Some believe the basement is a living organism that mimics the fear of those who enter. Each person sees something different in the shadows, depending on what they fear most in life. For the resident, fear takes the form of that pale hand that almost reached her on the stairs. Paranormal investigators tried to measure electromagnetic activity near the gate. The devices simply melted in their hands, as if they had been placed in a fire. There was no thermal heat in the air, only an energy that destroys any modern technology. The basement rejects progress and light, maintaining its sovereignty in darkness and silence. Have you ever stopped to think that the videos you just watched with flawless scripts and engaging narrations might have been created by someone who never even touched a camera or a microphone? There is a new digital elite profiting heavily behind the scenes of YouTube and social media, building massive channels without ever showing their faces or spending thousands of dollars on equipment. While most people are frozen by the fear of being on camera, these individuals are using the hidden power of artificial intelligence to generate automated content that works and earns for them 24 hours a day. The secret to dominating this game isn't about having a famous face. It's about knowing how to command the right tools to create scripts, voices, and visuals that magnetically hold the audience's attention. I've gained access to a strategic method that reveals the exact roadmap for you to build your own invisible digital empire. Mastering AI to turn clicks into a real source of income. It is the perfect opportunity for those seeking financial and geographical freedom without having to deal with the pressure of being a public figure on the internet. Best of all, you can seize this opportunity right now for a symbolic price. The complete training is under an exclusive promotion, dropping from $97 to just $17. This is your passport to unlocking the knowledge you need to start your professional journey with AI today. Click the first link in the description to secure your spot while this discount is still active. There are reports that the Green Gate leads to a tunnel connecting to the old subway, but subway maps show no connection to that specific address. It is a space that shouldn't geographically exist, an error in the city's urban matrix. Anyone entering through that gate might be leaving our reality for something with no return. The woman posted an update saying she started hearing voices in her own room. There were voices coming from the bathroom drain, whispering about dinner in the basement. The basement was no longer confined to the floor below. It was rising through the pipes. The infestation of fear was complete, dominating every corner of the resident's life. She decided to place a fixed camera in the laundry room to monitor the gate 24 hours a day. For the first few nights, nothing happened except for the constant flickering of the weak lights. But on the third night, the camera recorded the gate slowly opening from the inside. What came out of there had no shape. It was just a distortion in the image, a black vacuum. The vacuum walked up to the camera and the video was cut by violent interference. When the resident went down to retrieve the equipment, the camera had been ground up. The pieces of plastic and glass were arranged in a perfect circle in the center of the room. It was a clear message that surveillance would not be tolerated by the one who rules the gloom. The feeling of constant surveillance became unbearable for all the tenants. Many abandoned their belongings and fled the building in the middle of the night, never looking back. The building in Chicago became an empty shell, inhabited only by sounds and shadows, but the basement keeps pulsing, like a heart beating deep within the earth. Historians claim the Green Gate was brought from a demolished European asylum. They say it was forged with the metal from bars that held the most dangerous cases. The metal would be impregnated with the suffering and madness of hundreds of lost souls. This would explain why contact with the gate causes an immediate sense of despair. The resident shows in one frame that the floor near the gate seems to be sinking. It's not a common structural problem, but rather the concrete being digested by something below. A crack opened and from it comes a sound of howling wind, as if there were a canyon. The basement of a residential building hides a geological abyss that makes no sense at all. The case gained attention from TV channels, but no reporter had the courage to enter. They filmed from the sidewalk, pointing at the basement windows that were boarded up. The light that comes through the cracks of the boards at night is a sickly, unnatural green. Chicago watches in silence while one of its buildings is devoured by the unknown. The resident claims she found symbols drawn on the inside of her door. They were the same symbols she saw on the clothes washed weeks ago in the subcellar. The basement marked her as property, and escape seems more and more like a distant illusion. She is trapped in a cat-and-mouse game with an entity that knows no rules. The investigative narrative leads us to question the sanity of those who remain in that place. Why not leave? Why continue recording one's own decline toward the abyss? Some say the place exerts a hypnotic magnetism over its favorite victims. The Chicago basement chooses who it wants to keep and who it decides to merely terrify. Original basement blueprints were found in a secret archive of a former janitor. They show that beneath the green gate exists a chamber called the Echo Room. It was a place designed so that no sound would leave, but all sounds would enter. A place of sensory torture where silence was the deadliest weapon against the mind. With each new video, the resident's voice seems weaker and devoid of hope. She describes that the basement walls now feel soft to the touch, like living flesh. The architecture is transforming into something biological, a mutation between stone and being. The building is no longer a human construction. It is an organism in full metamorphosis. A specialist in electronic voice phenomena analyzed the static of the last recording. He isolated a phrase repeated 1,000 times. The door is open in the mind of the viewer. This suggests that the green gate is just a physical representation of a mental block. Once you believe in the horror, it has free passage into your physical reality. The resident recorded that the green gate is now always ajar, inviting her in. A soft bluish light glows inside, showing what appear to be marble steps. It is a bizarre contrast to the rest of the dirty basement, looking like an oasis in the chaos. But she knows the beauty there is just the bait of a deadly trap with no way back. Neighbors in adjacent buildings began complaining of vibrations in their own basements. The phenomenon is spreading like an underground infection through the city's foundations. Chicago may be sitting on a network of horrors that are waking up in unison. The viral video was just the first symptom of a much deeper and vaster disease. The resident posted a photo of her hand, which now has the same stains as the basement. Her skin is turning gray and cold to the touch, as if it were turning to stone. The process of assimilation by the environment is fast and seems totally irreversible. She is the chronicle of a death foretold, documented in chapters of pure suffering. A group of urban explorers tried to enter the building to rescue her last week. They entered through the garage but never reached the upper floors where she lives. Security cameras show them entering the basement and walking toward the gate. None of them was seen leaving, and their social media remains in absolute silence. The police finally entered the place, but found the basement empty and perfectly clean. There were no washing machines, no debris, and curiously, no green gate. In place of the gate, there was only a solid brick wall that appeared centuries old. The phone images of the resident, however, show a totally opposite reality. How to explain that the camera records what the naked human eye can no longer see? The basement has learned to camouflage itself from authority, revealing its face only to victims. It is a predatory intelligence that knows when to hide and when to strike with force. The resident remains missing, although her phone continues to post new videos. The videos now show only total darkness and the sound of heavy breathing. Sometimes, the sound of running water and a low cry that seems to be hers is heard. There is no way of knowing where the phone is hidden or who is doing the upload. The channel has become a digital memorial of a fatal encounter with the unknown. This case raises questions about the security of the structures where we place our faith. We trust that the ground beneath our feet is solid and that walls protect us from the world. But what happens when the house itself becomes the predator hunting us in the dark? The Chicago basement is the answer no one wanted to receive about human fragility. The investigation ends in this part with the sight of a new green gate in another building. This time, in a different neighborhood, but with the same chains and the same feverish heat. The phenomenon is not isolated, it is nomadic and seeks new hosts for its evil. The Chicago horror is just the beginning of an unprecedented architectural epidemic. The resident left a last handwritten note on the bathroom mirror before vanishing. "Don't look into the cracks in the concrete," said the message written in dried blood. She understood too late that the basement feeds on the attention and fear we generate. Every view on the viral video strengthened the entity that now rules the building. The silence that follows the closing of this part is heavy and full of cruel doubts. No one is safe as long as there are subcellars and secrets buried in the foundation. The city continues its busy life, ignoring the monster digesting its children below. But darkness always finds a way to rise and reclaim what is rightfully its own. Authorities declared the building a quarantine area without explaining the real reason. Barbed wire fences were installed and armed guards watch the site day and night. They don't watch to prevent people from entering, but to ensure nothing comes out. Official fear is the greatest proof that the residents' images were absolutely real. The Chicago basement has become a black hole in the geography and psyche of that region. People avoid walking on the sidewalk, claiming they feel a pull coming from the subcellar. The Green Gate, even if hidden by bricks now, continues to exert its will. Evil does not need open doors when it already possesses the keys to our souls. Part 1 ends here, on the threshold between what we know and what we fear to discover. The truth is buried under layers of concrete, dust, and screams that no one heard. But the story still has secrets kept that defy the very notion of existence. Prepare yourself for what comes next as the final dive into the heart of this infinite darkness. The mystery of the Chicago basement is a puzzle where the pieces are made of fear. With every step we take in the investigation, the more we realize how little we truly know. Beneath us, the Green Gate creaks again, announcing that the worst is yet to come. The guardian of the secret is gone, but her message continues to echo in the digital vacuum. The continuity of this report leads us to a macabre discovery made by divers. They explored the flooded tunnels that pass beneath the foundation of the cursed building. There they found hundreds of green keys stuck to the walls by an organic substance. Each key seems to belong to a different gate, scattered throughout the city of Chicago. The connection between the gates suggests an underground network of control and suffering. It wasn't just a basement. It was a node in a web that involves the entire modern metropolis. The resident was only the first to document what had always been there. Under the asphalt, the terror expands, revealing that the building was only the tip of an iceberg of shadows. New testimonies indicate that the green light seen in the basement is a form of astral radiation. It doesn't burn the skin, but decomposes the will and identity of those exposed to it. This explains the resident's erratic behavior and her morbid desire to film everything. The basement was using her as an antenna to transmit its fear to the entire world. A former government agent claimed that these places are known as echo zones. They are points where reality is thinner and where things from the other side can leak. The Green Gate was built to be a controlled release valve used by occultists, but something went wrong and the pressure from the other side became too strong for the chains. The resident, in a video recovered from the cloud, appears speaking in a dead language. Her voice is doubled, as if two people were using the same vocal cords. She walks toward the Green Gate, which now glows with a blind intensity. The video ends with her crossing through the metal as if it were made of water or smoke. Forensic analysis of the spot where the gate stood revealed uncatalogued DNA traces. It is a mixture of human biological material with something resembling abyssal fungi. Life down there evolved in an isolated way, feeding on pain and a lack of light. What we call monsters are just the natural inhabitants of this dark ecosystem. The phantom caretaker mentioned earlier was identified as a man who died in 1940. He was an immigrant who worked in the morgue that operated before the current building. His job was to ensure that the restless dead did not leave their damp cells. He continues his work in death, trying to keep the gate closed against the entities. The rhythmic thumping heard at the gate is actually the beating of a collective heart. Thousands of souls fused into a single mass of distressed and suffering consciousness. They beat to ask for help, but the sound we hear is that of an imminent threat. The basement transformed individual suffering into a weapon of mass psychological destruction. A private expedition tried to drill through the basement floor using industrial machines. The diamond drill bits broke as if they were hitting something harder than steel. The basement floor is protected by a force field that defies any physical intervention. The nature of that place is inviolable, protected by laws that do not belong to this world. The residents sent one last message to her mother before the phone turned off forever. "Don't look for me on the ground. Look for me in the reflection of the puddles," it said. This suggests that she is not buried, but trapped in a mirrored plane of the subcellar. The Green Gate was the bridge to this dimension of distorted reflections and eternal dread. The cultural impact of the video was such that local churches held vigils around the building. Reports of mass possessions were recorded during these meetings of intense prayer. The evil residing in the basement seems to feed on the faith and fervent fear of believers. The more they try to fight it, the stronger and more far-reaching it becomes in the urban region. The city of Chicago finally issued a statement calling the case collective hysteria, but satellite images show a persistent heat spot over the address. There is no fire, but the ground temperature is equivalent to that of an active volcano. The basement is boiling with an energy that threatens to melt the city's very foundation. The investigative narrative points to a pattern of disappearances in similar buildings. Whenever a Green Gate is spotted, someone vanishes without a trace or explanation. The architecture of horror is a harvest system that operates in plain sight, in the dark. The viral video was the glitch in the system that allowed us to see the gears for a moment. The resident is now seen in security camera footage from other distant buildings. She always appears in the background of the images, pointing at the floor and vanishing. She has become the herald of the basement, warning of the expansion of the Emerald Gate network. Her physical existence ended, but her role in the gears of fear has only just begun. Symbol experts discovered that the Green Gate forms a geometric pattern on the map. If you connect all the buildings with suspicious basements, you have a giant summoning seal. The city of Chicago was designed to be the altar for a ritual lasting hundreds of years. The basement in the video is just one of the cardinal points of this master plan of pure horror. The air around the building now tastes like rust and blood that never goes away. Birds die when flying over the roof, falling like stones onto the busy sidewalk. Biological life is being repelled by the metaphysical presence emanating from the subcellar. The basement won the battle for reality, transforming the building into a cursed sanctuary. Audio recordings from Part 2 reveal that the Green Gate now emits the sound of laughter. It is a dry, joyless laugh that seems to mock human efforts to understand the case. The entity behind the bars knows the secret has been exposed, and that doesn't change its strength. On the contrary, digital fame has given the basement a new source of food, our attention. The resident left a hidden camera in her apartment before descending for the last time. The video shows the bedroom walls bleeding a green fluorescent substance at night. The furniture moves on its own, reenacting the layout of the basement in the living room. Her home has become an extension of the subcellar, eliminating any safe refuge. Investigations in neighboring buildings revealed that the basements are merging underground. The brick walls are disappearing, giving way to tunnels of flesh and black bone. Chicago's subsoil is becoming a single immense cavity of pure dread. The original Green Gate was the catalyst that started this catastrophic fusion of spaces. The last message captured by a ham radio in the area was a coded plea for help. The coordinates led exactly to the center of the Green Gate in the original viral video. The voice was of one of the missing explorers, saying that time here is different. He claimed to have been there for decades, though he entered only a few Earth days ago. The basement is a temporal anomaly where suffering is extended for all eternity. 1 minute of pain down there is equivalent to years of continuous agony in the victim's perception. This explains why the entities are so furious and distorted by the madness of time. The Green Gate is the lid on a pressure cooker full of souls cooking in the chaos. The laundry video has been taken down several times, but always returns on new channels. It seems the digital file itself has a will of its own and refuses to be erased. It wants to be seen. It needs you to look at the Green Gate and feel the curiosity. Every second you spend watching is an invitation for the basement to enter your life. The documentary mystery leads us to an ending where there are no heroes or miracle solutions. The building is still there, the chains are still creaking, and the gate is still waiting. The resident is now just a voice in the cold wind blowing from the cracks in the concrete. Real horror doesn't end with the credits. It continues when you turn off your lights. Forensic specialists found the resident's fingerprints on the inside of the metal. This proves she tried to come back, but the gate only opens for those wishing to enter the abyss. Once you cross the green threshold, the world of the living becomes a distant memory. She is on the other side now, watching us through the lens of her ghost phone. The city of Chicago tries to move on, but fear is a stain that won't come out. Tenants in other buildings now look at their own basements with suspicion and dread. Any green door, any noise in the plumbing, becomes a trigger for panic. The viral video changed the architecture of fear for an entire generation of viewers. Missing person reports in the building rose to 12 people in a single month. Police cordoned off the block, but the officers who enter come out with white hair. They refuse to report what they saw, handing in their badges and quitting the force. What resides in the basement is too strong for the lore of men and the courage of the brave. The structure of the building is starting to emit a visible glow during total night. It is an emerald light that pulses to the rhythm of slow and extremely heavy breathing. The building is alive and the basement is its brain, commanding the invasion of our reality. We are witnessing the birth of a new kind of horror, organic and immortal. The final stanza of the narrative puts us face to face with the absolute void of the subcellar. There are no more cameras, no more lights, only the sound of the gate opening for good. What comes out of there won't be captured by sensors or seen by eyes that want to tell. The Chicago basement has finally claimed its place as the epicenter of terror in the world. The resident's story ends with a silence that screams in the ears of those who listen. Her search for answers led her to the only place from which no one has ever returned. The Green Gate remains as a monument to the unknown and the danger of looking deep. Beneath us, the darkness continues its slow dance, waiting for the next visitor. The mystery remains open, with no logical conclusions or endings that bring peace to the mind. The Chicago basement is an open wound in reality that no bandage can close. What would you do if you encountered the Green Gate in your own daily journey today? The answer defines whether you will be the next narrator or the next victim of the dark. Conspiracy theories now say the government is trying to replicate the basement. They want to use the energy of fear as a weapon for social and mental control. But the Green Gate does not obey governments. It obeys only the hunger of the shadows. No one controls what lives in the abyss. You only become its servant or its food. The original video has become a test of endurance for fans of the horror genre. Few can watch until the end without feeling a real and deep physical discomfort. The images carry a digital curse that spreads with every share made. You are now part of this story, whether you like it or not. Just for having heard the account, claw marks on the basement concrete are now appearing on the walls outside. The horror is leaking into the streets, turning Chicago into a haunted city. The Green Gate was just the ignition point for a paranormal fire beyond control. The subsoil is rising, and soon there will be nowhere left to hide from the green light. The resident, in her last appearance, no longer had eyes, only glowing sockets. She smiled at the camera as the Green Gate slowly closed behind her. It was the last image of a soul being voluntarily consumed by absolute mystery. She found her peace in the darkness, but left the chaos for the rest of us out here. The building was finally imploded in a desperate attempt to end the evil. But among the rubble, the Green Gate remained intact and perfectly upright. No machine could tear it down, and no flame could even scorch it. It now stands isolated in a vacant lot, waiting for someone to try to open it again. People report hearing the sound of laundry coming from the empty lot at night. The sound of spinning machines and the smell of soap mixed with death still persist. The basement no longer needs a building to exist. It has become a rift in space. The Chicago horror transcended matter, becoming an eternal and visceral legend. The investigation into the original owners led to a name not found in books, a name that, when pronounced, causes the animals around to become violent. The Green Gate was the personal seal of this entity, marked in iron and ancient blood. The basement was its temple, and the resident was the final sacrifice it long awaited. We are facing a case that defies all boundaries of what we consider real. The viral video was just the bait for a trap that now involves all of us. Fear is the only language the basement understands, and we speak it perfectly. Beneath the asphalt, the Green Gate creaks one last time, sealing the city's fate. The documentary ends with the image of the Green Gate reflected in a puddle of water. In the reflection, the gate is open, and something immense is beginning to emerge into the light. The world will never be the same after the image is captured in that Chicago subcellar. Darkness has won, and silence is the only prayer we have left to say now. This account is based on facts that defy logic and embrace the purest horror. What is hidden in the Chicago basement is still there, waiting for your curiosity. Do not go down the stairs if you hear a growl, and never ever touch the green metal. The mystery is an abyss, and the abyss now knows your name and where you live. The case remains filed as unexplained by the competent authorities of Illinois. But for those who saw the video, the explanation is unnecessary in the face of the dread felt. The Green Gate is Chicago's scar, a reminder that evil never sleeps. It just waits for the moment we lower our guard to strike us. The journey through the darkness ends here, but the shadows continue to follow us closely. The Chicago basement is now a modern myth, a bedtime story for the brave. But remember, every legend has a grain of truth, and this truth has sharp teeth. Keep your lights on and your doors locked, especially those in the sub. What do you think really happened to the resident and what lives in that basement? Comment your theory below about the Green Gate, subscribe to the channel, and leave a like. Your interaction is what drives us to investigate the darkest corners of our reality. Thanks for watching, and be careful what you find while doing your laundry today.